Welcome you all to the Wednesday, January 29th, 2014 S&A committee meeting. Hope everybody had a good week. We'll start with roll call and attendance. John Bowen. Here. Joseph Bryant. Here. Yeah. JD Sharest. Oh. Now, first time in, 10 weeks I've gotten it right. Sarah Feeney. Here. Miles Glover is not here. Sharon Jonasson. Here. Kate Kennison. Here. Robert Lane. Here. Robert Mosier. Here. Josh Muthart. Here. Catherine O'Neill. Here. Todd Shiver. Here. Ashley Stubbs. Here. Dustin Waddleford. Nope, not here. Derek Woodham.
Hi, Catherine.
He's here. Welcome. Derek? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Can you speak up? I'm just kidding. Here. Connie Williams, not here. And Jacob Whitman, I am present. Thank you all for being here. We'll move on to agenda approval. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the January 29, 2014 agenda. Robert? So moved. JD? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, agenda approved. Move on to section 4, approval of the minutes from January 22nd, 2014. I would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from January 22nd, 2014.
So moved.
Thanks, Ashley. Is there a second? JD, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, minutes approved. Move on to section 5, reports. I have nothing to report this week. Do you have anything, Sharon? We did appoint Dustin on Monday, but he's not here, so I don't know if you got the email in time, but we should see him next week. I think a couple of you are familiar with Dustin. He was on the committee last year. I'm excited about that. Other than that, I have nothing to report.
The only piece, and this could go under communication received, but I'll put it here, is we do have confirmation that NASDAQ will be doing their annual report next week.
All right, good to hear. All right. With that done, move on to section 6, public comment. At this time, is there any public comment? Okay. Move on to section 7, supplemental funding request. At this time, we have no pending requests. Move on to section 8, old business. Subsection A, rugby update. We have Bob Ford and the athletic director, Dennis Francois, here. So I'll give you guys the floor.
Thanks for giving us a few minutes. Ashley, you can hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Thanks, Bob.
Great. So I'm Bob Ford, the director of campus life, and I'm here with Dennis Francois, our athletic director. We wanted to follow up on a conversation that Andy Fields had with the committee from the University of Recreation. He's out on paternity leave right now. And so it's been some time since they last met and discussed rugby. And at that time, the S&A committee was looking at a proposal. There was an initial meeting of a proposal for some support for travel. And I believe they came back for the second meeting in which that was approved. So some support from the S&A committee if the rugby programs, men's and women's, were to transition into intercollegiate athletics, that there would be some support from the committee, and it was over the 4-year time frame. So the same amount of funding that's already been committed, but that it would drop off 10% each year, I believe, each outyear, as a transition plan for those programs making their way into intercollegiate athletics. So at this time, that conversation is still moving forward. So we want to make sure that we met our obligation of coming back to report back and give you guys an update as to where that was within the administration. And we're still mapping a lot of territory, and Dennis is going to talk a little bit about that from the NCAA compliance side of things and what that means as far as the programs and their potential transition. But it's something that if we do, we want to make sure we do it right, that it's the impact to not only the athletic department, but then the student athletes is really a priority, and Dennis will speak to that as well in just a minute. But just from a rugby perspective, program perspective, Alex Lee's also here. I think he was here for your guys' first interaction with him, so if there's more of a student-oriented question that you guys may have, he'd be able to help us field that as well. But so far the conversation has been really positive. We've worked on operational budgets for both programs. And this again would be both men's and women's rugby making the transition, not one nor the other. And then trying to really establish what would that look like from an administrative standpoint if those were to be able to move on from a club sport perspective, where right now Both programs are in their current practice schedule with the sport club department, still operating on the sport club department. Students are still paying dues, and we're still part of that traditional collegiate sport club program process. So no change to date. Could be something coming forward, but if we make the decision to move forward as an institution, that'll be a collective decision. So.
Well, as Bob said, we're still in the process, and I want to thank you all for supporting this initiative right now. We in the Department of Athletics, we've got a few kind of primary goals within what we're trying to accomplish as an athletic department, and part of that's changing the culture within our department. And some of the things that we did budgetarily this fall, or actually this summer, is to bring that student-athlete experience, regardless of what sport it was, up to a base level of need and minimums. And we're talking about how we travel. No, we're not staying 4 to a room, we're staying 2 to a room, because that's what basketballs have done and volleyballs have done in football. We want to have that student-athlete experience be equitable across the board, our meal per diems, all those types of things, because we feel that unity is very important, and when we have more unity, we're able to support each other. And there's not that contention and conflict between programs, and that's really how we've got to grow. So when we started looking at the possible addition of rugby, we looked at that in that same manner. We want to make sure that the student-athlete experience for rugby players would be the same thing as it is for our current varsity intercollegiate student-athletes. So that entails doing things the right way. For us, kind of our biggest concern, we've got a few things that we're looking at. Our biggest concern, are we able to offer them the same level of support and services that we currently offer our student athletes? And that becomes a big area is the athletic training area. We've got, this isn't just rugby, this is 2 sports, and it's not 2 sports that are just happen in the fall like soccer or something like that. These are 2 sports, when you look at the 15s and the 7s, that happen literally the full year. So it's almost like track and field and cross country. We're really adding to a degree 4 new sports, because you're adding women's 7s, women's 15s, men's 7s, men's 15s. So the athletic training room is one of the areas that we definitely look at. Currently, we probably are slightly understaffed for what we offer now with intercollegiate football. We have 2 full-time trainers, a couple of student or GAs, and a couple of student assistants. That's pretty low for the numbers that we have, about 350, 375 student athletes. So that's one of the areas that we said, if we're going to do this, we've got to add literally probably a full-time athletic trainer and another graduate assistant. We've got to have 2 more bodies, because we can't be in 2 places, 1 person in 2 places. So that's one of the areas. Our strength conditioning, as you know, or maybe you don't know, but we added a full-time strength conditioning coordinator this year. Again, you're adding approximately 80 or 90 to 100 more student athletes. So you're adding about 30% more student athletes into our program. We got to make sure we support them. So a lot of ours is more infrastructure, staffing needs and requirements that we're going to have, and we need to do it and do it right. Again, we want that experience for rugby players, if we make this transition, to be the same as every other sport. So that's our commitment, to make sure we're doing it right. And it's also going to be part of that unity in terms of, hey, we're welcoming in open arms, and now you're part of our athletic department. We've got to treat it that way and address it in that same manner. So one of the things that we look at now, of course, is women's rugby is an emerging sport within the NCAA. It is recognized as one of 4, now 5. We actually just had another triathlon was actually approved at the last NCAA convention a couple weeks ago as an emerging sport. But that's recognized as an emerging sport. For us, that's a positive thing, because from a Title IX and a gender equity perspective, we need to make sure that we're meeting the interests and needs of our underrepresented sex. For athletics, or for Central Washington, our underrepresented sex or gender within athletic participation is females. And so we need to make sure that we're meeting that interest and ability. We know that we have a strong men's program, and we're going to continue to hopefully maintain a very, very strong and competitive and nationally competitive men's program. But we also need to make sure, again, that experience for those women, part of the women's program, is equally as valuable and a great experience. So in order to add them into our department as well, and I didn't pick it up, but Danny, you might be able to raise that book back there. That right there is the NCAA manual. It is, I don't know, 400 pages. It's a lot. Everything that we've done in the past now from a perspective of women's rugby, all of a sudden if we make this transition and they become recognized as an emerging sport and a true NCAA recognized sport within our athletic department, they have to abide by everything within there. And that changes a lot of things. And Bob and I have had numerous meetings about this, but how that changes the perspective of what our coaches can and cannot do, what our student athletes can and cannot do, the 20-hour rule in terms of practice, the minimum numbers of competition, the maximum number of competition. It's a whole host of things, and that is kind of where we're at right now with the NCAA, making sure that we are, I guess, dotting our I's and crossing our T's to make sure that this process and that we're not missing anything in that, making sure we're doing our due diligence to make sure that what we do is going to be in the right manner and working into a plan that would be a smooth transition to make sure that women's rugby is recognized as one of our NCAA sanctioned sports. One of the questions you may have is, what constitutes a varsity sport? NCAA doesn't mandate, well, this is a varsity sport and this is not. What determines a varsity sport is really the level of support that your institution provides a particular sport program. So when we look at Title IX and OCR, the Office for Civil Rights, who enforces Title IX, they're very liberal in terms of what constitutes that. So if we're providing the same level of service and support for those student athletes that that are our intercollegiate NCAA sanctioned sports, men's athletics or men's rugby would also be considered, to be considered a sport that would count towards that, but of course so would the women. So that's where we got to make sure that we're doing everything in a very equitable manner as we're moving forward. We're not getting ourselves into a situation where we don't want to be in terms of our gender equity plan. We're actually right on target right now with our financial assistance. I feel we are very equitable in terms of our benefits and opportunities. And then the third area of Title IX is the interest and ability section, and this would allow us to go on prong 2, which is our current historical practice of program expansion. We're adding programs where there's an interest for the underrepresented sex. So we feel that's a good plan moving forward from a gender equity and Title IX perspective. This would allow us to really fall in and meet those reoccurring requirements and ongoing requirements. But we, again, want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence in the process and not leaving anything kind of unturned there so we don't have any surprises down the road. So as Bob said, we're currently in the process of making sure that we're checking through all those things, and we do not want to make this a bad experience for anybody. So we just want to make sure that we're going forward in a positive direction, but a cautious direction as well.
All right, Sharon?
So when Andy came before, he did a great job representing rugby and stuff, but there were a couple statements that he made several times that had some people bring forward questions afterward. His comment was, something to the effect around, we're just asking for the student support, $33,000 that they already do, and the president's going to come up with the rest of the money. So the questions that were then asked were, well, where's the president coming up with the money? Do you, in your budgeting work, have you guys estimated what the cost of attendance increase to the entire student population is going to be, whether that be through fees or through tuition?
Well,
Cost of attendance to, can you say it again?
To students. So Andy was not able to answer where the funds were going to come from, and so that is what people were asking the question afterwards. So
It's more the economic impact.
Yeah. So right now the model of the rugby program and what's been put forward is that there is a growth opportunity, an economic impact opportunity, that if we can enroll additional students who would not otherwise honestly choose Central as an institution of choice, then we can actually make a positive impact. So when you look at where the institution's going as far as responsibility centered management, they're looking at the idea that you're generating revenue and you're identifying the expense that relates to that revenue in that category. So it drives kind of a management process, which is what it is, not a budgetary process. While at the same time, the proposal is that if we can increase that student head count and attract 30 or 40 more athletes, then that's going to increase the overall yield of the institution, which then potentially gives the institution at the tuition and the fee setting level the ability within that number that's already being generated from additional student population to offset the expense of programs.
So what I think I just heard you said is they're going to increase headcount, so there's not going to be any increased cost of attendance to the student population, whether through fees or tuition.
My understanding is at this time there's no increase to cost of attendance to a student related to the rugby program being considered as an addition.
Because of the RCM model.
Yes, well, I mean, this drives that. Right now, there's not in the model necessarily, but it's more of the increasing enrollment, right? So let's say, for instance, right now we have 25 female athletes participating in women's rugby. If we can increase that yield to 30 additional athletes, so you have now 50 women athletes that are participating in that program, and those are students that wouldn't otherwise be here at the institution, increasing the enrollment number. So that's part of the logic behind why this might make some financial sense.
Tuition waivers to those students, then they're going to be tuition paying students.
Tuition paying students, yep.
Yeah.
And there, I mean, you could even take a portion of that total amount of fee or funds raised, and you could allocate some of that back into tuition waiver support, but that would just reduce the total amount yielded to the institution, right? So if you were generating $250,000 or $300,000 in potential additional tuition waiver, tuition revenue, and then you were saying allocating, I don't know, $50,000 in waiver support over a 5-year period or something, 4-year period, then you're just reducing that each year, the yield to the institution, right? So you just have $250,000 you'd be able to allocate out in exchange. So.
And I think part of that too is you look at, when you're looking at incoming freshmen, sophomores probably living on campus, you're looking at room and board aspect of it, additional revenues to the university, but that's probably going to taper off as juniors, seniors. But it is, that's really the justification for a lot of programs. Are they coming here? Would they have come here otherwise? And right now, for instance, I'll give you a scenario where I previously was. We had women's rowing, and we didn't go out and recruit. We recruited off campus or on campus. It was, at student orientations and this and that. And it's like going, that's not an economic driver for us because you're not out there recruiting new bodies to this institution. You're recruiting already what's on campus. That was a tough one. And so right now, that's kind of where we are with women's rugby compared to men's rugby. Men's rugby is much more prominent. We're out there. Kids are making choices on coming to Central because of our men's rugby program. And I'm sure we have some women that are in that category now too. But I think once you take it to that next level, then they're making those decisions based on, hey, they've got a collegiate rugby program. It's a varsity sport. It's one of their true varsity sports there. That is, it's not a club sport. Then they're going to make that decision to come to here compared to other ones, and then that's where that economic model starts driving. In terms of fee increases, there's been no concrete conversations about, yes, this is how we're going to start funding that. We're going to, start increasing fees because of that. Anything that's natural, the progression, I know we are funded next year already for an increase of an additional, I don't know our budget that well yet, but this year we got an increase from S&A, and then I think next year we also were budgeted for an additional increase, but that has nothing to do with us adding rugby. As we continue beyond those years, when our needs continue to increase, as travel increases and just the cost of living and cost of operation increases, that's one of those things that I can't look out into the future, and I wouldn't make any promises one way or another. That's just kind of the natural progression of things. But for us right now, we've been looking totally from an economic driving model, the new revenue to the university in terms of additional students.
Does the board have any questions? Derek.
What is 715?
Oh, 7-15. Sevens and 15s.
Yes.
So sevens is a model sport where there's 7 athletes on the field, and 15s is 15-a-side competition. So sevens is an Olympic, now an Olympic sport, 2016 in Rio. 15s is the traditional form of rugby you may have seen, union style rugby, which is what we've traditionally played at the institution since 72. 72 was when the men's program was founded, and in 1990 was the women's program. And a little known fact, I don't know if she'd like me outing her or not, but Jenna Hyatt was one of the original captains of the women's program. So, interesting.
Any further questions?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I figured.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Sevens is usually in the fall.
Yeah, sevens has a fall national championship, and 15s is a spring national championship. Held through USA Rugby.
Any additional questions? All right, cool. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you coming back.
Thank you.
Look forward to the progression of this.
Yep, appreciate it.
All right. With that done, we'll move on to section 9, new business. And we'll go to base funding program reviews, and we'll start with the Sarah Spurgeon Art Gallery. We have 10 minutes, so we'll say till 6:20. And then time.
Or would you like me to move it forward for you?
I can click.
You're the visual.
There's a forward button there.
You know, South.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna click.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
There it
Oh,
goes.
which one did you have?
It's these ones.
All right. Excuse the technical difficulties.
I'm not a clicker.
Thank you for resetting the clock. I appreciate that. All right. All right. I'll let you click. Hi, I'm Heather Johnson. I'm the gallery manager of the Sarah Spurgeon Gallery in Randall Hall. And I'm going to try to real briefly address the 9 questions that you wanted us to talk about in our program review. And one of the questions was how many students are directly involved in the gallery. I have an average of 3 student employees, work study employees, or however much work study is available. We also have, I also work with museum studies interns who fulfill their internships with me. Can you hear me in the back? Do I need to speak up? I also have a good number of student volunteers. Many of the student volunteers who come and help out in the gallery belong to the Student Art Club, the Student Artists Collective. And another event where we have a good number of students working directly in the gallery is the First Friday Children's Art Exhibit. And that's where it's a display of kids' artwork, elementary children's artwork, but the children are taught art lessons by CWU elementary ed students. Next slide, please, Sharon. We have 8 or 9 exhibitions each academic year in the Sarah Spurgeon Gallery. The 2 that are reliably always student exhibitions are first the Juried Student Art Exhibition, and that's an exhibit that's generally sponsored by the Student Art Club, and they are in charge of all aspects of the exhibit. And so they collect the work, they learn how to display the work, they do all the publicity. And so that's really their chance to shine. We also have MFA business exhibits. These are our grad students, and so they're earning their terminal degree in art studio practice, and this exhibit is really the culmination of that degree. And so they present a body of work that they put together. And so these are just a couple of images. It looks like we got cut off just a little bit, but this is the Juried Student Art Exhibit. And You see how they do the graphics, they collect the work, they install the show. And so some of, next slide please, the learning opportunities for students in the gallery are that student artists can participate in a professional exhibit in an art gallery. And for those of you who don't know that much about what it takes to become a professional artist or to go to grad school in the arts, you really need to build a portfolio of work, and you also need to have been in a number of exhibitions. And so they get accepted to this exhibition, it goes on their resume, and they have that important experience to move forward. They learn how to prepare and display artwork. They learn how to handle artwork safely. And also, working with me, they gain insight into aspects of gallery management. And so they learn about shipping, traveling exhibits, budgets, event planning, publicity. And also, we have a number of professional artists who come and give shows and talks, and they also have workshops in the classrooms. And so they get to spend time with these professional artists, learn what they do and how they become successful in their field. And so you had asked in your questions, how do we decide what programs to present? How do we decide what exhibits, which visiting artists, which lectures? And really our driving sort of impetus is our mission statement. The purpose of the Sarah Spurgeon Gallery is to offer the campus of Central Washington University and the community at large the opportunity to view and experience art firsthand. The gallery's exhibitions and related outreach programs are designed to support the department's educational objectives as well as to enhance, engage, and challenge the viewer's knowledge and understanding of art. We also present artists and viewers alike with opportunities to explore culturally diverse ideas and academic environment. And so this is, really the basis of how we begin to choose what we put on display in the gallery. We have a committee. It's called the BASE Committee. There are 3 rotating art department faculty and myself who are on the committee. And we choose from exhibition proposals, we choose from what's going on in the art department classroom, and we decide the schedule of exhibits. And so you had also inquired about cross-disciplinary programs, how do we collaborate with other areas on campus and the gallery. And this is an example of an exhibit, Jerry Saylor's exhibit called Numinous, and these are hot glue strands that she strung from the ceiling. And we had a dance performance at the very end of the exhibit. So the exhibit was about to close, and this was the finale, and a choreography class came in, and they put on this performance, and they actually tore down the exhibit for us. They pulled down all of the strands, and they kind of cocooned themselves up in the strands. It was pretty interesting. And it was a show I didn't have to tear down, so it was fun for everybody. And so, an additional, we're still on this one. Yeah, we're still on this one. And we also had a creative writing workshop that went on in conjunction with this exhibit. Terry Martin in English. I don't know if anybody's taken class with Terry, but she had 2 of her classes come in. Each class spent 2 weeks in the gallery, and they wrote work that was directly in response to this piece. Next, please. Also, just to show how we're trying to represent diversity in the gallery, this is an exhibit called Passages, Contemporary Latino and Latina Artists. And we invited artists who are from Central and South America and the Caribbean. These were artists who actually live regionally but have roots in those countries. And we had 2 speakers come, including this artist that you see here. This is Juan Alonso. He's a Seattle artist, and he actually won the Seattle Mayor's Art Award in 2010. So he came and gave a talk. And this was also coordinated along with Latino and Latin American Studies. It was part of Hispanic Heritage Month, so we were working with that area together. Thank you. And this is a thematic exhibit that was curated by my department chair, Greg Schlanger. It's called Yakima River Diaries. And so we had, we invited various artists from the region to respond to the idea of the river. And some pieces were, very sort of realistic pieces, such as, is that a rainbow trout? Somebody has to tell me what the fish is.
Sure.
You can go for that. I don't know my fish very well. I didn't plan that. No, I didn't prepare. But then we also had artists who, thought about the river as memory, as the course of a person's life. And so we had about 20 artists participate in that show. And this was done in conjunction with MCE, the Museum of Culture and the Environment. They also had a river exhibition that happens simultaneously, but theirs had more to do with geography, with sense of place, and with Native American ideas about the river. Next, please. And so this is how I would go about estimating how many students we serve. We had 3,750 individual visits. We do count visitors when they come in. We don't have people, sign their names, so that we can. Some of these may be repeat visitors. We just don't keep those kinds of records as people are walking in and out of the gallery. I can tell you that last year we had class visits from museum studies, poetry, creative writing, English as a second language, and dance. The ones that I know of. There may have been more classes that came in where their instructors didn't necessarily tell me in advance. And we have around 230 art majors and minors and museum studies minors who we know that these programs really just directly apply to what they're doing. And so in trying to identify how the gallery's goals coincide with the university's stated values or core values, I just assigned one of the university's core values to some of the things I think that we do well in the Sarah Spurgeon Gallery. So in the area of student success, we provide professional development for our students, studies minors. Also, in terms of student success, we have lots of collaborative programs. I showed you some examples of that. Instructors in all disciplines, not just in the arts, can come and bring their classes to the gallery. It's free. Everything that we do is free to the public, free to everybody in the university, free to everybody in the community. And in terms of inclusiveness and engagement, we bring in lots of professional artists from outside. Living in Ellensburg, we're a little bit remote from a lot of the major art centers. A lot of our students haven't necessarily been to the Seattle Art Museum or the Tacoma Art Museum, so we're bringing things here for them to look at that are really relevant to what's happening in art today. So that's really my 10-minute presentation. 6:21, okay.
You did great. Except for you know what kind of fish that was.
Yeah.
The duck points, right? Does anybody have any questions about the gallery?
Okay.
I've gone to several of the art gallery exhibits for students that were actually displaying art and for some of the artists they brought in for students to learn from. And they're really good. I encourage people to go up because it really is. If you ever do the shoebox, right? That was my favorite. But it is really a neat opportunity for students.
Okay, how many of you have ever been to the Sarah Spurgeon Gallery? So you were mentioning how you might do site visits at some point. I would recommend that you all come and visit me sometime and I'll give you a tour. Yeah.
Just do it. Derek?
I actually do have a question on the totals for classified staff seems somewhat small.
The total.
The total money spent for classified staff seems
The
somewhat
classified
small.
staff is me.
You're the classified staff, so I'm assuming that you have some other responsibility than just the art gallery.
Well, that only pays, it's a percentage of my salary and benefits. The rest comes from the College of Arts and Humanities.
Got
I
it.
think it's some strange number, like 33%. So, yeah, that isn't my entire salary and benefits, but I work part-time.
Any additional questions from the board? John?
I had a question. You mentioned the Museum of Culture and the Environment in your presentation. So I could be wrong about this, but I don't think the MCE receives any S&A funding. So I'm just curious, looking at your budget, it looks like the primary source of funding for the gallery is S&A funds.
Yes.
Is there some sort of fundamental distinction between the art gallery and the Museum of Culture and Environment that explains why S&A funds are the primary source of funding for the gallery, but to the best of my knowledge, are not a source of funding for the museum?
I have talked to Mark about this before. And I think the Sarasota Gallery has been around for a lot longer. We've been around since 1969. And the Museum of Culture and the Environment is relatively new. And so I know that the Sarasota Gallery has received funding from S&A since at least 2000, maybe going back. I don't know if they have plans to approach this group for funding. One difference between us and them is that they do receive substantial funding from their College of the Sciences. And they have more staff than we do. They have, I think, 3 or 4 staff members. I am one part-time staff member. And so they, I think they do engage in more fundraising efforts, from outside sources. We do have a few, small foundation funds that was listed in our budget report. So we have, 7,000 one and 9,000 and others. But as you're probably aware, it does require staff. It does require a lot of effort to go through that. But I think the primary difference is their support from their College of the Sciences. Yeah. I hope that, I'm not an expert on their funds, but that's just where I think it is.
I was mainly curious. Thank you.
Are there any further questions from the committee? All right. Thank you very much for your time. All right. We'll move on to CWU Collegiate Sports Clubs. We have Corey up here. We welcome you to the floor.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. My name is Corey Sinclair. I'm the coordinator for the Collegiate Sport Club program. With me, I've got my graduate assistant, Derek Thomasone. So we'll go through, we don't have the slides in order of the questions. We answer all the information, but just trying to make the presentation flow a little bit more smooth. I reorganized things, so should hit all your answers.
So what are sport clubs? Every individual club is student ran. It's another avenue for competition after high school. Many have told us that they like it because it's a social activity. The difference between intramurals, varsity athletics, and sport clubs: intramurals, students compete within other students at the university. Varsity athletics, everything is run under the athletic department, as Bob and Mr. Francois just said before that. And sport clubs, they ran student ran. Funding versus traditional varsity athletic programs. With the varsity athletics, everything is ran under the university and the athletic department. Most of sport clubs' dues or funding comes from student dues and from their fundraising, with some supplemental funding from the university. We've actually been researching on the Observer online, and we saw this article from the Rodeo Club in 1957, so we know that the Rodeo Club has been here since the 1950s, and we saw rugby, men's rugby has been here since the 70s, and Bob Ford said 1972, that was the exact number. Women's rugby has been here since 1990, and funding was first allocated to sport clubs in 2000, and at that time there were only 4 sports, and in 2006 is when we had our first professional staff member, Corey. And from 2000 until now, the highest it reached was 26 sport clubs, and right now we're sitting at 24. It's probably going to stay at 24 and plateau there due to the resources that we have. Last year we had some good highlights. 2 clubs were ranked as top teams in the country. The men's rugby club, they got selected to compete in the Varsity Cup, which is the division with the best rugby teams in the country. And they're going to be in that for the next 3 years. For the first time since 1950s, we had our first national champion. That was Wake Sports Club. And students participated in over 1,000 practices, training sessions, 148 different competitions in 14 different states. And between collecting dues and fundraising alone, clubs generated $200,000 in revenue. And right now, clubs are getting to recruit students in the Northwest, nationally and internationally. Right now, we're working with admissions to see how we can raise awareness to high school students that sport clubs is an option after high school. Every year for the insurance, for the sport club insurance, we have to show a census. And then this was the census that was created. It shows how many participants were involved, how many practices there are, how many participants show up to practice, how many spectators come to our home events. And last year we had 511 total participants. Right now we have 470 registered members, and it's probably going to be about the same number by the end of the year. I'm expecting that. And competition overview. Our largest competition every year is the college rodeo. There's 150 participants in that over a 3-day span, and it's at the Kittitas County Fairgrounds. We have also a bunch of individual matches with rugby, water polo, tennis, and tennis will be able to start hosting events once the tennis courts reconstruction is done. For the past 5 years and this year, we've held the National Archery Schools program. The Archery Club actually runs that, and it's elementary students and high school students come here to compete. And last year we had 400 participants. So far this year we have 650 high school and elementary students signed up, and we're probably going to have to cap that at 800 because last year 400 was a lot for one day in one building, and it's going to be a 2-day event this year, so we figured 400 for each day. Also last year we had 49 home events, 99 away events, and 6 national competitions.
So how we support the university's goals, recruitment and retention of students, we touched on that a little bit earlier, supporting the development of students outside the classroom, creating a sense of belonging to students on campus. That's something we hear a lot about in some of our assessment pieces, strengthening school pride, and then collaborations. On the next slide, you'll see it's really a daunting task trying to figure out who we collaborate with. Each club has a network of national organizations, referee associations, facilities on and off campus. We've got partners. I could spend a 10-minute presentation just on people we work with. There's a lot. Strategic planning, how we make decisions. A lot of feedback from club officers. We actually created an executive council to get more feedback from students. Surveys, information from staff members, program statistics. Learning objectives. There's a lot of different things. Leadership development is something that's a large component. When students are managing their clubs, they literally develop their budgets. They plan their travel. We assist in that process, but it's really neat. I guess that's my favorite part of my job is watching the students grow in those. So you can see a list of things there. How we measure learning objectives, one-on-one meetings with staff and officers, exit interviews, evaluations. We've actually created an online registration process, so that's something that we added this year. So each individual participant has to complete an online registration, so there is an assessment component of that. So it's great, if you send out if we sent out a survey to 500 participants, we'd be lucky if we got 150 back. So now we get 100% assessment and feedback, so they can't basically participate unless they complete that information. So, as far as the organizational chart, this is just the program. So obviously we're under University Recreation, so we have a director and an assistant director. Above that, so the sport club coordinator, myself, my graduate assistant. I've got 4 student supervisors, 4 members of the executive council. We've got a sport club council that's 1 member from each individual club. There's approximately 70 club officers and then around 500 participants in the program. Then on the other side, you also see the support staff. So coaches, volunteer coaches, EMTs, athletic training, paint staff, lifeguards, etc. Staff wages, every student that works for me receives minimum wage. As far as my graduate assistant, that is a stipend that's dictated by graduate studies, so I don't have any say over that. And then any other support staff that we pay for, it's basically under a different supervisor, and I don't dictate their wages. Basically, I get billed for them, so I don't have any say over that. So lifeguards, photographers that take pictures of the program, EMTs, athletic trainers, paint crew, etc. So to give you kind of a 3,000-foot view, you can see a majority of the expenses are goods and services, and then you see there's a portion there that goes towards staff to help kind of administer the program. The next slide, you see a little bit more of a breakdown of the goods and services. So if you see here, the sport club insurance, that's something that we were fortunate enough to get support of from your committee in the past. So that's around $38,000, $40,000 per year. Registrations each year for fees and memberships, about $10,000. Staff costs, this year we're projecting $41,000. That includes a graduate assistant. And then program goods and services, and you see majority of the expenses there goes towards assisting clubs with travel, and we're estimating $80,000 this year. So if you look at the annual budget comparison, it's really difficult. This budget has been kind of hard. If you look back 3 years ago, there was S&A supplemental funding that was put into my budget. Then the next year, we figured that was kind of skewing up numbers when I tried to run budget reports. So we started taking that out, and then we created a holding account, and then we've basically been working through and changing things. So it's hard to look at it year to year. But if you see on, I guess, year 2, you'll see an increase in right here in the graduate assistant. We had a half-time graduate assistant, and that funding came out of this area. So again, reporting year to year. And then if you see here, this is non-student payroll, and so the actually my salary for the sport club coordinator is actually got the salary was put into this budget, but the money that comes from the rec fee was also put in there. So again, when you report, it kind of skews things. One other thing that you might see, it looks like that we've exhausted our budget. This year in revenue and expenses so far, or goods and services, we've actually taken those and actually pulled them out and put them into a holding account. And so that way, when I run a budget report, I can actually see what my operational costs are. And so Sharon's been really helpful in that process. So I think that concludes everything. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions. Can we go back to the statistics page, which I think was like page 3 or 4?
That one?
That one. So men's lacrosse appears to have 0 male participants, but 20 female participants. Am I reading that wrong? Can you see that, John?
I think it was just probably put in the wrong.
Whoops.
Yeah. How did you catch that?
Yeah.
22.
Men's lacrosse has 20 female
I might be
right.
hiring another student.
Switch
This is my last quarter.
My insurance guy didn't even catch that, so.
Oh my goodness. Any further questions?
Yeah, my second question was, have you heard anything about the potential for esports?
For what?
Esports?
We're not familiar with esports.
Electronic sports,
Okay.
like gaming. I know that there's been some chatter about like sponsorships of teams at Central.
I haven't heard anything. So I know just for collegiate sport clubs, there is a competitive requirement. So actually, I was at the University of North Texas previously, and we actually had a chess club, and they actually competed online. So it was great because they didn't have to travel.
Yeah.
Just they used a room and a minimal cost for equipment. So it was a great club.
Right.
Low overhead.
Yeah, it was great. Nobody's talked to me, so yeah, I guess if we'd have to have some conversations to see how that fit.
If people came to you and were interested in doing it, you would be the person to talk to?
If it was going to be a competitive club, I guess that would be I have conversations with some students that approach me and trying to figure out whether they become an ASCWU club versus a collegiate sport club. We could have that conversation and see where it would best fit.
Okay. Any further questions?
I can't say, just as Derek kind of alluded to, we're kind of at a plateau as far as the resources that we have. I can't say. I guess if you were just to use if a club were like that were to approach me, I guess just thinking about space, we have really large challenges with that. But I guess if it was a meeting room, that probably wouldn't be as big of an issue. But I've got a men's volleyball club that has just approached me, and I think they've got interest. They've identified an avenue for competition. They know that there isn't any funding currently available, and they're willing to basically be self-sufficient in the beginning. So yeah.
Does the committee have any further questions for the collegiate sports clubs? All right.
Sharon has this, so she said that she could email that out. And yeah, if you guys need any other information, please contact me.
Cool, thanks guys, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All right, good information there. I wish you had a Madden club, I'd be pretty good at that. Madden.
They could. It's a competitive sport. I mean, people do play a competitively league at league level.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I know, I have seen that, it's pretty
And in
interesting.
Asia, there's a ton of money involved.
All right, so we'll move on to section 10, other business, communications received. I think, Joey, you mentioned a communication earlier about Monastash happening next week.
Yeah, they're planning on, they'll follow through. I did realize there's one thing issue under my advisory report is I will not be here next week because I'll be at a conference. So I will be gone.
I won't be here either next week. I'll forget to email you, so I'm telling you.
We got 11 minutes
I'll be
now.
out of town, yeah.
And he'll remember because he watches these things.
Yes, it's on TV.
Jacob did.
I was gonna watch this tomorrow night, so I would have, nothing else to do on my Thursday
Please
night.
forgive me, yeah.
Okay, let's see. No communications? All right. Seeing we have no other communications, move on to section 11, public comment, second call. Is there any public comment at this time?
I actually just wanted to say, after I just sat down, we do have, through our intramural program, they actually have Madden and FIFA leagues.
Oh,
So
wow.
that is an opportunity for just an electronic competition.
Perfect. It's good to know. I might stay another year just for that. All right, before we adjourn, we do have a new member here, Catherine O'Neill. I forgot to introduce you in the beginning, so I think you probably see everyone's names in front of Catherine, so I don't feel it necessary to introduce everyone one by one, but there we go. Did you have any questions about the committee or anything, Catherine? All right. All right, so I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Don't all jump at once, all right? I know we only got here. JD? So moved. Catherine? Second? Yeah. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, meeting adjourned at 6:40. Thanks, guys. Cool.